What's up, guys? It's John from What Do You Mean? I just wanted to kind of give some quick thoughts. Um, I realize that I talk a lot about this, but I haven't ever explained it that well, and it's a little. I'm still working out how to put it into words to make it really precise. But um, I brought up this point a little bit ago when it came to the James White controversy, but I've also talked about it in my video that black doesn't mean Democrat, and uh, what the kind of basic point remove this. What the kind of basic point is that it's something like virtue signaling, and what I've noticed is that a lot of people in a lot of different groups, a lot of the time, what they say sounds very, very compelling because of the emotional language being employed and the virtuous language being employed. So, for example, when someone appeals to something that sounds so right, sounds so moral and virtuous, we tend to want to agree with them, even if their arguments or the reasons why aren't that compelling. They sound very compelling, and the reason they sound very compelling is because they have this sound about them that makes them sound so virtuous. So when I was talking about the James White situation, I was talking about how, and this was just my impression, and this is not to try to revisit this situation and stuff like this, but his argument sounded like it was doing the same thing. He was saying how, well, we care about the gospel, we care about saving people, but that's not their ministry. Even though we clearly stated in the video over and over that that's just not true. We do want people to be saved by the gospel, and sometimes you have to remove the barrier first before you can get to them with the gospel. But not trying to rehash that, but this is the same thing I talked about with the left too. A lot of the time, what the left will do is use this language, like they'll call people bigots and um, and homophobe, Islamophobe, all this stuff. So that way, people have a tendency to want to fight against them, right? They're like, "Well, yeah, I'm against the bigots and I'm against the Islamophobes and stuff like this." And what you realize is that their arguments are not that compelling, and so that's one of the things that I really advise that everybody really watch out for, because people do this over and over and over. And I started seeing it, and I never really developed the language for it. But I realized that these are things that people want to side with, and then this is how they win people over. So it's not as much of as an argument thing. So with that being said, I just want to say everybody kind of keep an eye out for that whenever anybody does it, because then you can, if you pull all that away, then you can look at the argument for really what it's worth, and then you can make a more informed decision. Otherwise, it's very easy to get distracted into the language and the rhetoric of people who sound virtuous. They sound like um, their position sounds a lot more emotionally compelling than intellectually compelling. And I really think that this is what's happening with culture at large. I think this is one of the reasons why Christians a lot of the time are losing these debates with people. And the reason why is because the other sides are usually better at using this rhetoric and better at using this type of language. Um, and that's something that we should be paying attention to. I think whenever we go into debates, a lot of the time you'll notice this. A lot of the atheist debaters and a lot of these pro-choice debaters and stuff, they use this virtuous sounding language. Well, I'm on the side of human rights, or just a lot of stuff like that. And I notice it in every debate. And I notice that when you get into these kind of more complex debates, the people that are watching the debates, a lot of the time they have no idea about or they don't understand the full details of the actual complexity when it comes to some of these more complex issues, like the historical data or something for the resurrection, or the theology behind stuff, or hermeneutics, or whatever you want to talk about. And because of that, the audience doesn't have a lot to go off of, so all they can go off of is how it makes them feel. And I think at bottom, humans, for the most part, really react off of emotion rather than logic a lot of the time. It overrides the logic most of the time. And unless somebody has these kind of barriers that are in between that can prevent them from being taken aside by the emotion or the rhetoric, or this kind of virtuous sounding language, then it's very easy for them to be taken over by these sorts of things, because it's a mental shortcut. It's easier to just say, "Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds easy." And that's the thing too, is people want other people to make the decisions for them a lot of the time, because we have so much information today too. And I think this is part of a consequence of being in an information age. There's so much information out there that it's tough for people to sift through so much of this information that's available, that a lot of the times going inside for some sort of subjective confirmation, where there's a subjective experience of some sort or a subjective emotion or something like that, really cuts through a lot of this stuff, so they don't have to do the hard work. And then it's a lot harder for somebody to go against somebody that they already support. And so because of that, it's easy for the other person to kind of make inform their decisions for them, and then they just jump on to whatever that person says. And this is true of everybody. This is not saying just like, some people. I mean, this is true of people that support either politician. I mean, anything like this, it's easier for people to just kind of jump onto it. And that's why we tend to like people who are compelling to us in some way. And so I think this is just kind of worth stating at some point. I mean, I do teach on this sometimes, but it's worth stating so that way people kind of have an idea of how they can evaluate things. Because I think the problem is, a lot of times people might have some sort of like, they kind of like, there's a grain of truth in what people are saying or something like this, but they don't really know how to sort it out, And so this is one way that I found helpful, for me at least, in life, was paying attention to this. And this is something I've just noticed over and over and over, and never really developed the language for or put it together. But it's something I notice, and now it's something that really helps me parse out a lot of the complexities and stuff like that too. Yeah, and I realize everybody's different, but for me, I think it's very easy. I noticed it myself, at least. Like, now it's not it doesn't have as big of a hold on me, but it's easy to get wrapped up into this type of language where it shortcuts your critical thinking process, and instead it activates your emotion, which overtakes this thing. So, anyways, that's just a thought I had. Thought I'd share it with you guys, and God bless you guys. Love you all, and talk to you soon. And should have a few new videos coming out here pretty soon too. So, talk to you guys soon. All right, peace.